Hi, in today's story I'm going to be reading a chapter from this book, Me Before You by Jo Jo Moyes. Patrick stood on the edge of a track, jogging on the spot, his new Nike t-shirt and shorts sticking slightly to his dark limbs. I stopped by to say hello and to tell him that I wouldn't be at the Triathlon Terrors meeting at the pub that evening. Nathan was off and I'd stepped in to take over the evening routine. That's 3 meetings you missed. Is it? I counted back on my fingers. I suppose it is. You'll have to come next week. It's all the travel plans for the Extreme Viking. And you haven't told me what you want to do for your birthday. He began to do his stretches, lifting his leg high and pressing his chest to his knee. I thought maybe the cinema. I don't want it to be a big meal, not while I'm training. Mum and Dad are planning a special dinner. He grabbed at his heel, pointing his knee to the ground. I couldn't help but notice that his leg was becoming weirdly sinewy. It's not exactly a night out, is it? Well, nor is the multiplex. Anyway, I feel like I should, Patrick. Mum's been a bit down. Trina had moved out the previous weekend, minus my lemons wash bag. I retrieved that the night before she went. Mum was devastated. It was actually worse than when Trina had gone to university the first time around. She missed Thomas like an amputated limb. His toys, which had littered the living room floor since babyhood, were boxed up and put away. There were no chocolate fingers or small cartons of drink in the cupboard. She no longer had reason to walk to the school at 3:15 p.m, nobody to chat to on the short walk home. It had been the only time Mum ever really spent outside the house. Now she went nowhere at all, apart from the weekly supermarket shop with Dad. She floated around the house, looking a bit lost, for 3 days, and she began spring cleaning with a vigour that frightened even Grandad. He would mouth gummy protests at her as she tried to vacuum under the chair that he was still sitting in, or flick at his shoulders with a duster. Trina had said she wouldn't come home for the first few weeks, just to give Thomas a chance to settle. When she rang each evening, Mum would speak to them and then cry for a full half an hour in the bedroom afterwards. You're always working late these days. I feel like I hardly see you. Well, you're always training. Anyway, it's good money, Patrick. I'm hardly going to say no to the overtime. He couldn't argue with that. I was earning more than I'd ever earned in my life. I'd double the amount I gave my parents, put some aside into a savings account every month, and I was still left with more than I could spend. Part of it was I worked so many hours, and I was never away from Grand's house when the shops were open. The other was simply that I didn't really have an appetite for spending. The spare hours I did have, I'd started to spend in the library, looking things up on the internet. There was a whole world available to me from that PC, layer upon layer of it, and it had begun to exert a siren call. It had started with a thank you letter, a couple of days after the concert. I told Will I thought we should write and thank his friend the violinist. I bought a nice card on the way in. I said, "You tell me what you want to say and I'll write it." I never even bought my good pen. "I don't think so," Will said. "What?" "You heard me. I don't think so. That man gave us front of house seats. You said yourself it was fantastic. The least you could do is thank him." Will's jaw was fixed, immovable. I put down my pen. Or are you just so used to people giving you stuff that you don't feel like you have to? You have no idea, Clark, how frustrating it is to rely on someone else to put your words down for you. The phrase written on behalf of is humiliating. "Yeah, well, it's better than great big fat nothing," I grumbled. "I'm going to thank him anyway." I wrote the card and posted it. I said nothing more about it, but that evening, Will's words still echoing around my head, I found myself diverting into the library and spying an unused computer. I logged onto the internet. I looked up whether there were any devices that Will could use to do his own writing. Within an hour, I had come up with 3. A piece of voice recognition software, another type of software which relied on the blinking of an eye, and, as my sister had mentioned, a tapping device that Will could wear on his head. He was predictably sniffy about the head device, but he conceded, and the voice recognition software might be useful. And within a week, We managed with Nathan's help to install it on his computer, setting Will up so that with a computer tray fixed to his chair, he no longer needed someone else to type for him. He was a bit self-conscious about it initially, but after I instructed him to begin everything, "Take a letter, Miss Clark," he got over it. Even Mrs. Traynor couldn't find anything to complain about. "If there was any other equipment that you think might be useful," she said, her lips still pursed as if she wouldn't quite believe this might have been a straightforwardly good thing, "do let us know." She eyed Will nervously, as if he might actually be about to wrench it off his jaw. 3 days later, just as I set off for work, the postman handed me a letter. I opened it on the bus, thinking it might be an early birthday card from some distant cousin. It had in computerized text, "Dear Clark, this is to show that you and I are not entirely selfish, and I do appreciate your efforts. Thank you, Will." I laughed so hard, the bus driver asked me if my lottery numbers had come up. After years spent in that box room, my clothes perched on the rail in the hallway outside. Trina's bedroom felt palatial. The first night I spent in it, I spun round with my arms outstretched, just luxuriating in the fact that I couldn't touch both walls simultaneously. I went to the DIY store and bought paint and new blinds, as well as a new bedside light and some shelves, which I assembled myself. It's not that I'm good with that stuff. I guess I just wanted to see if I could do it. I set about redecorating, painting for an hour a night after I came home from work, and at the end of the week, even Dad had to admit I'd done a really good job. He stared for a bit at my cutting in, fingered the blinds that I had put up myself, and put a hand on my shoulder. "This job has been making of you, Lou." I bought a new duvet cover, a rug, and some oversized cushions, just in case anyone ever stopped by and fancied lounging. Not that anyone did. The calendar went on the back of the new door. Nobody saw it except for me. Nobody else would have known what it meant anyway. I did feel a bit bad about the fact that once we had Thomas's camp bed up next to Trina's in the box room, there wasn't actually any floor space left. But when I rationalised, they didn't even really live here anymore, and the box room was somewhere they were only going to sleep. There's no point in the larger room being empty for weeks on end. I went to work each day, thinking about other places I could take Will. I didn't have any overall plan. I just focused each day on getting him out and about and trying to keep him happy. There were some days when his limbs burnt, or when infection claimed him and he lay miserable and feverish in bed. That they were harder than any others. But on the good days, I managed several times to get him out into the spring sunshine. I knew now that no one of the things Will hated was the pity of strangers. So I drove him to local beauty spots where for an hour or so it could just be the two of us. I made picnics and we sat out in the edge of the fields, just enjoying the breeze and being away from the annex. "My boyfriend wants to meet you," I told him one afternoon, breaking off pieces of cheese and pickle sandwich for him. I'd driven several miles out of town, up to the hill, and we could see the castle across the valley opposite, separated by fields of lambs. "Why?" "He wants to know who I'm spending all these late nights with." Oddly, I could see he found this quite cheering. Running man. I think my parents do too. I get nervous when a girl says she wants to meet my parents. "How is your mum anyway?" "The same." "Your dad's job? Any news?" "No. Next week, they're telling him now. Anyway, they did say they wanted to invite you for my birthday dinner on Friday. All very relaxed, just family really, but it's fine." I said you wouldn't want to. "Who said I wouldn't want to?" "You hate strangers. You don't like eating in front of people, and you don't like the sound of my boyfriend. It seems like a no-brainer to me." I'd worked him out now. The best way to get Will to do anything was to tell him you knew he wouldn't want to. Some obstinate, contrary part of him still couldn't bear it. He chewed for a minute. "No, I'll come to your birthday. I'll give your mother something to focus on, if nothing else." "Really?" "Oh, good. If I tell her, she'll start polishing and dusting this evening." "Are you sure she's your biological mother? Isn't there supposed to be some kind of genetic similarity there?" "Sandwich, please, Clark. And more pickle on the next bit." I'd only been half joking. Mum went into complete tailspin at the thought of hosting a quadriplegic. Her hands flew to her face, and then she started rearranging stuff on the dresser, and as if it was going to arrive within minutes of me telling her. But what if he needs to go to the loo? We don't have a downstairs bathroom. I don't think Dad would be able to help carrying him upstairs. I could help, but I'd feel a bit worried about where to put my hands. Would Patrick do it? You don't need to worry about that side of things, really. And what about his food? Will he need it pureed? Is there anything he can't eat? No, he just needs help picking it up. Who's going to do that? I will. Relax, Mum. He's nice, you'll like him. And so it was arranged. Nathan would pick Will up and drive him over, and would come over 2 hours later to take him home again, and run through the nighttime routine. I had offered, but they both insisted I should let my hair down on my birthday. They plainly hadn't met my parents. Now that's the end of the chapter, and I must admit, I really enjoyed that. I've not read that book before, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the beginning and read it all the way through. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that chapter from Me Before You by Jo Jo Moyes. As I normally say, I would appreciate it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just give us a quick thumbs up. Thanks for joining me today.